Hello, this is H1. We're going to be running it back with another episode talking about chess knowledge, chess wisdom, and chess understanding again. And today, I'm going to teach you how to push pawns in front of your king the right way, because this grandmaster, he know how to do it with a little bit of style. So let's get started with this game. I feel like everybody be like, oh, don't push pawns in front of your king, and you beginners still shouldn't, but it's good to see grandmasters that still enjoy the game of chess and think of it as a creative game. Now, in this position, we are the white pieces. And the white side, his rating was 2687. And the black side, his rating is 2371. So it kind of explains what happens in this game a lot more by just knowing the rating difference. In this position, this knight is threatening this pawn on d4, but black decided, black decided not to capture this pawn because of, actually, dang it, where did that pawn go? It should be on h7, my bad. That knight can't capture this pawn on d4 because of moves like bishop takes on h7, and then the queen is going to capture the knight on d4, and black is going to have to contend with all that pressure on the d5 pawn. And it's white's move right now, and we are the white pieces. We do this move f3. After f3, you might be thinking, okay, this seems pretty positional. That's a fine move because it keeps the opponent from doing this move, knight to g4 or knight to e4 in this position, and trying to change the center of the game very easily. And just know that this is a static pawn structure. This is a static pawn structure. What does that mean? Well, both sides have pawns on the same files. In a dynamic pawn structure is basically the opposite of that. So like each side has a pawn on the A file, B file, D file, F file, G file, H file, etc. So there's not going to be any funny business. And we have a semi-open, we got a semi-closed position too. It would be a closed position if we had a E pawn, but we have a semi-closed position since we both have D pawns. After this move f3, black decided to do a knight to e7, and then, like the hopefully the title suggests of this video, white he threw the kitchen sink at the opponent with this move g4. He actually did this move g4, which is threatening g5 the knight. Where's that knight gonna go if this move g5 happens? The knight gonna go to e8, and all of the opponent's pieces is gonna be really passive, and there's no counterplay for the black side. And the computer is like, well, this is good. This is futuristic chess, and I want to show this game just to give you that creativity again. All you people who are intermediate players or beginners that think that chess is, you gotta follow the rules, and if you don't follow the rules, then you're gonna lose. No, chess is more than that. Of course, this still comes with a lot of principles. You don't want to open up the king side if your opponent has like checks, captures, threats, and if your opponent has an open center and their rooks are on the open files. Yeah, of course. But since the opponent rooks aren't doing anything at all, why not just push up g4, g5 and call it a day? And now black has a decision to make. They have to figure out how to defend this attack that's pretty much non-existent at the moment, but it could be existent in a few more moves. After g4, knight to g6, attacking this knight, maybe if they trade some pieces, this attack won't go on anymore. Well, white was like, okay, no, I'm doing knight to g2. And this knight to g2 replaced the pawn, replaced the g4 pawn. And that's another thing too. If you're gonna push pawns in front of your king, make sure that the pieces replaces those pawns so that there's no threats on the king on g1. The king just wants to feel safe. They don't mind if you push pawns in front of the king, but the king needs to be still protected. And after this move, knight to g2, rook f to e8, and then queen to f2, now the f pawn is replaced. And it's going to be a lot easier to push these pawns up starting from now. After queen f2, a bishop to c6 is not the best move, which this move pretty much loses black's the game for black, because white has the initiative after this move, bishop to c6. I mean, dude, it looks like another pawn at this point. White did this move g5. Attacking a knight, where's that knight gonna go? Is it gonna go to h5? Where is that knight going to be going here in this position? You don't want to get trapped on h5 too, because easily knight to h5, queen h4, I mean, shoot, like it's getting pretty close. Or knight to h5, f4. No, knight to h5, f4, because if you go queen h4, it can still land on that square. So knight to h5, f4, and then the attack is going to continue. So they put the knight to d7. After knight to d7, f4 in this position, just pushing up and trying to cause some weaknesses. If your opponent doesn't have any weaknesses, you have to create them. F4, F6, and there we go. The opponent is forced to like combat this pawn structure here because you already know what was next. F5, F6, and then the whole king side was gonna open up without them fighting one bit. And okay, this F6 pawn is doing a lot right now. It's attacking this pawn on G5. And if we just allow that capture to happen here, maybe like we're allowing the opponent too much leeway here. We're allowing the opponent too much leeway, and we're definitely not capturing the F6 pawn, and then knight takes on F6, and they have all the weak squares that we created under their control, like the G takes on F6, knight takes on F6, knight to G4, attacking the queen. We don't want that to happen. Not at all. And this is what you have to be conscious of if you're going to push pawns in front of your king too. Of all those weak squares that we're creating, just make sure that they're all defended. And that's why he did this move H4. He did this move H4 in this position. Just kept all the tension here. Of course, not the best move. Like what did the engine want? They wanted the move F5. Keep on going aggressive at the opponent. But no, H4 does the job too. White is still winning. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a human move. Knight G to F8. Black is probably hoping, okay, knight on F8, there's no checkmate. The principle should stand for this, right? It doesn't always stand. That is a principle, but it doesn't always tend to happen that way. So after knight G to F8, knight to E3 in this position, just getting our pieces on better squares. Since they want to move backwards, knight to B6, maybe they want to do knight to C4 in the future, or knight to A4. If you trade pieces, the pressure is going to be off of the attack on the king side here. So after knight to B6, knight to F5, attacking the queen, and yeah, this is already looking pretty dangerous. Why? Why so, H1? Well, with the knight on F5, that's a knife to the king side. That knight is, and plus, it's already dangerous that the knight is already attacking the queen. It has that force to move initiative that black has to respond to, but now it's attacking all these these crucial squares on the king side. Like you don't know if a sacrifice is gonna happen on the G7 square. If it does the wrong move, like queen to B8, knight takes on G7 is probably on the table. You don't know. You don't know. Or knight to H6 check is on the table too. Knight to F5, queen goes back, defend all those crucial squares, hopefully like staying on the 7th rank, and then white was like, okay, I'm gonna take the pawn on F6. Since you can't take it back with the queen, that's the key detail. Since black can't take back the pawn with the queen, which would keep their pawns intact, I want to open up the G file to attack this king on G8, in which black was like, okay, I can't just lose a pawn, so I have to do G takes on F6 too. After G takes on F6, G takes on F6, King H2, you already know what white's plan is. They want to utilize these rooks, put on a G file, and attack the king. And you know what could happen, like the knight is not going to be protecting this checkmate that could happen. Rook G1, King H8, Queen G2, and Queen G8 is still on the table since that knight is blocking the rooks from the 8th rank. King H2, King H8, Rook G1. Just because you move your rook, move your king, doesn't mean I'm not still going to put my rook on G1. And then what else do we have here? Knight to E6 and knight to H6. Knight to H6. Already setting up checkmating patterns here. Of course, if there was no rooks on the 8th rank, rook to G8 would be checkmate. And plus, this check could come into effect pretty soon, like knight to F7. We never know here. After knight to H6, rook to E7. And then what do we have next here? Rook to G3. Of course, so the computer wanted bishop to F5, but all these moves pretty much work. So if you see a question mark, exclamation mark near the move, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's not the best. After rook to G3 here, rook to G3, very normal move. Okay, black's idea is they want to double up to get that checkmated sequence with rook to G8. If the rook was on G1, rook to G8, rook takes on G8, and then rook takes on G8 would be checkmate on the board. So black was like, okay, I'm gonna stop this by doing this move of rook to G7. After rook to g7, we're gonna force that knight to move. We're gonna force that knight to move. We don't want to take, and then their knight takes. We want their queen to take so that we can get that initiative move, that forcing move to get another piece on the g file. And that's exactly what happens. f5, knight moves to c7, rook takes on g7, which is a defensive piece. We're getting rid of all the defensive pieces around this king. Good for us. Queen takes on g7, rook to, wait a minute. Queen takes on g7. First, oh, I didn't put the rook on the right square. First, queen to f4, protecting the knight on h6. And then we have this weird move, rook to e8. Rook to e8. They can't go, I was thinking they could go to rook g8, but they can't even go there because of knight takes on g8. So they can't even block this next move, which happened on the board, rook to g1, which the rook is now attacking the queen on the g7 square. After a rook to g1, this attack just keeps on piling up and piling up and piling up. And remember too, white is keeping in mind of all the squares, all the entry squares of the black pieces too. So there's no rook to e2 checking our king. There's no, all their pieces on the queen side doing nothing to defend on the king side. And we have all the attack in this position. So after rook to g1, queen to e7, there's no sacrifices that they can do here. And yeah, they probably want to do queen to e3 and try to trade the queen pretty soon. But even that's a bad move, because if it was their move, queen to e3, queen takes on e3, rook takes on e3, rook to g8 is checkmate. So even if they want to trade pieces, it's still against them. This is the definition of, oh snap, you are in trouble, you're in Zugzwang pretty much. Queen to e7, bishop to e2, well, almost Zugzwang. Bishop to e2, knight to c8, just trying to get their pieces to the king side as much as possible. If they had a few more moves like knight to d6, knight f7, trade that knight, they'll be fine, and then we'll be losing. That's why when we do extreme stuff like push pawns in front of our king, you got to be very precise with the moves that you are playing. So after bishop to e2, knight to c8, bishop to h5, the last piece that tips the tower over. The rook has to move somewhere. The rook moves to f8, because if it moves to d8, knight to f7, and there's, I mean, shoot, you have to sacrifice your queen for the piece because the rook is still on the g file. So it goes to f8. You can't do knight to f7 so easily right now. After rook to f8, the last move that white did here is queen to g4. After queen to g4, black resign, because the main threat is queen g8, rook takes on g8, rook takes on g8, and that's checkmate. And even if the queen moves back to e8 or d8, queen to g7 is checkmate. Even with this check, queen to d6, king just moved back and the checkmate is still alive. And yeah, this is a good attacking example of just like doing what we all want to do. Push pawns in front of our king to attack the opponent and not just let them have a simple game, because we want to win in chess. We don't want to draw and lose, okay? That's not the main purpose. And you already know, white celebrated this one. I would celebrate this one. Even if the computer gave me all those inaccurate moves for some reason, I would still celebrate it because these were human moves. And make sure that you like and subscribe too. I forgot to even say that during the music. Dang! Anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Keep on fighting till the end, staying focused in chess and in real life too. I will see you next time. I got more videos that you can watch that you would be interested in. Go watch those.